Welcome to the Quill and Curtain podcast. This is your guest host, Robert J. LeBlanc. I am taking over the reins today for a very special reason. Throughout the course of the year, Darrin has interviewed many people from the theater world, and I thought today was the day that we turn the tables on him. So I would like to welcome my guest today to his own show, Darrin Friedman. Darrin, welcome to your show.
Oh my God, thank you, Bob. In my own show. This is so exciting. I'm actually a little nervous. I don't even know what to say.
So you know what it's like in the hot seat now.
I just usually sit back and say nothing, and now I have to actually sound coherent.
So what we're going to do today is I'm going to put Darrin in the hot seat, as it were. We're going to find out about him. We're going to find out about his background, some of the challenges he's had in theater, the rewards he's had in theater, the Quill and Curtain podcast, where it came from, and also delve in to find out his favorite rejection story. Darrin, I think it's important to let people know that though you might be relatively new, comparatively, in theater, you are not new to storytelling. In fact, you have a few novels under your belt.
Yeah, I do. And it even goes back to the beginning of my career. What a lot of people don't know, and which I don't talk about very often, is my television experience in my 20s. I started, my career started right out of college at CNN. And after waking up at 3:30 in the morning to do the news for a while, I decided that wasn't such a good idea. And I went up to Discovery Channel. And then on from that, I did, at the very infancy, I worked for a company called TV on the Web. So content creation and creating a narrative was always something I did very early on in my career. And something I honed. Now, what I had always wanted to do was tell stories of my own. And I did back then begin writing in the novel format because I enjoyed it, but I had never finished anything. So fast forward 15 years of working in the most horrible industry that you could imagine, and that's real estate. I don't wish that upon anyone. I worked successfully in that career, but it all came crashing down. And this is around 2015. I sat down and I wrote a novel, but I didn't just start a novel, I finished a novel. And it was an extraordinarily, to know that I did it, to know that I finished it was so rewarding. And not only that, I made a character like me. The protagonist was bipolar. And at the very end of the book, now it's a suspense thriller kind of thing, and it has nothing to do with me really, except the character's bipolar and I'm bipolar. And at the very end, in the acknowledgments, I come out of the closet as bipolar to the world. And to me, that was a very big deal because I wanted people to know who experienced my writing that authenticity was a huge part of the journey for me. And I endeavor to this day to write authentic characters. And it needed to start with me. And that's how I did it. So the book, The Crazy in Babylon, was very representative of the way my inner thinkings and how I view the world came through that character. Now, I did write another novel, which I am very proud of, that I had worked on for a very long time. But having had the confidence after The Crazy in Babylon, I was able to finish Haven's Point. But it really gave me the confidence of saying, here's a story I want to tell. Here are characters I want to learn about. Here are the journeys that they're going to go on. But to be able to write the end at a manuscript level was very confidence building. And made me feel totally legit at the time. And I walked around and I held this book in my hand. It had my name on it, and it was a real thing. You picked it up and people bought it, and it was exciting. Now, I think all in all, I think I've sold like 237 copies of The Crazy in Babylon, which is, more than one, less than 1,000, but it's still wonderful to know that someone out there read it. And in fact, what's really cool is there are people I don't know that have read it, which, when you think about it, you go, wow, that person who just commented on Amazon, I don't know that person, which means that's pretty freaking cool. And so that really proved to myself that I could write narrative in the way that that was meaningful to me.
What part of the novel writing experience do you find parallels screenplay and play format?
In terms of storytelling and preparing kind of the beats, I have ironically found a beat system that I love. I absolutely love it. Mm-hmm. It's called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder.
Save the Cat, yeah. Anybody with any film experience.
Anyone with any film experience. If you want to write film or television, learn that book. Yeah. But they have, what I didn't know at the time when I was writing novels is they now have a Save the Cat for novel writing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
They have that now, but they didn't have it when I was writing books. But when I was writing screenplays, I have 3 screenplays under my belt that are full length and 1 that's a short. The short doesn't count. So let's talk about the 3 full. Those are all beated out by Save the Cat beat sheets. And I have a 10. So I have 3. I have 3 10 to 12 page full treatments of 110 page screenplays or 100-page screenplays, all beated out in that format, using those techniques. What has been ironic in my playwriting, I've gone away from Save the Cat because it's not all that applicable. But what's interesting is I spoke to Save the Cat people last week about having a book and a software developed for the playwriters, because I do believe that there's certain elements of Save the Cat, theme stated, new world or current world. What's the current world status? The theme stated, what is, the inciting incidents, raising action, we talk about the B story and in Save the Cat and getting your characters to be involved in situations that don't go off the rails in terms of knowing where their story and journey are supposed to go. So it's just a roadmap. It's like having your GPS. And even sometimes your GPS will say, oh, no, you need to take this street. You can take your own street. It's not like the 10 Commandments. It's not like someone says from Save the Cat, you have to do this. No one ever said you have to do this. I just like saying, okay, if I follow this roadmap, it will help me through my treatment really get the organization down. So I know where my story is going from beginning, middle to end, and make sure that the rising action and the falling action makes sense. I have really taken that to my playwriting, where I personally do outline my plays. I got my MFA very late in life. I'm sure we'll get into that story, but when I got my MFA, I learned very, I believe importantly, that if you don't have structure to your plays, you're really going to put yourself behind the 8 ball, because someone should be able to take your play, in my mind. Like, I want someone to take my play and say, this really hit on all the notes. Like, this makes sense to me. Now, they don't have to know the details of why it hit the notes, but, I would analyze plays that I would read, like Sweat. from Lynn Nottage. You read Sweat, and I think Sweat is an amazing play, but breaking Sweat down and learning how she came up with the beats to create Sweat is applicable to me writing The Butterfly Anchor and saying, am I hitting the same kind of moments, the same kind of dramatic beats that allow my story to be told in a way that will be consumable by the person reading it and experiencing it, especially when actors are saying the words out loud.
Yeah.
Because when I believe someone knows when you hit and when you don't hit.
Yeah.
And I learned that through, at the beginning, my novel writing, but it really didn't become a thing until I learned the Save the Cat beats with my screenwriting. And then I became hardcore when it came to doing the work, really doing the hard work in between drafts with my playwriting. I draft my stuff to death. I mean, I really, and I know some people that's totally okay. And I would never judge anybody. Everybody has a different method. I think some people write and they, I know somebody who said to me once, I let the characters tell me what the story is. I think for that person, that is totally fine. And I would never tell someone, don't do it that way if that's how it speaks to you. I think for me, that was terrifying, not knowing, even in the beginning, if I'm writing something new, my outline might totally suck. But at least I say, okay, here's the crisis, here's the climax, here's the new world. So I understand basically what happens, but I do a ton of the character work I do is, and I learned this from you as well. You always talk about improv and how improv influences your characters. I think for me, when I sit down after either a first draft, and usually, I affectionately call it the vomit draft, and I think you do as well. The vomit draft, you just get it out, but it's after that vomit draft, and I don't even call it the first draft. And then the thoughtful first draft. I do a ton of character work, and I really break down my characters, and I go in deep on, and even if it never shows up in the manuscript, at least I know what the experience of these characters are. So it all goes into, I believe, what your question was originally. How do you structure these things? And I wish I knew this when I was writing books, but it's okay because I know how to do it now that I'm writing plays. And plays is what I want to be. I want to be writing plays. I don't even write screenplays anymore. I just, I know it sounds silly. And I know this amazing playwright, who just went the opposite way. But I decided that I was going to say very clearly that I was a playwright. Darrin J. Friedman, playwright. Now, if you go to my website, it still says Darrin J. Friedman, playwright, screenwriter, world builder. But I'm really a playwright and world builder. So this other playwright I know, Crystal Skillman, who is, if you have not read Crystal, I interviewed her for the pod a few weeks ago, and she's just amazing. She very specifically came out and said, I won't be pigeonholed.
I'm in that same boat.
She writes she writes comic books. She writes all kinds of stuff, and she is outstanding at what she does. But, it is interesting that I have felt very clearly, and I don't know if this is a marketing thing. I don't know, because I haven't examined myself enough to understand why I decided to say Darrin Friedman, playwright. But there's something about understand what I'm not as a filmmaker, even though I made a film. What I'm not is really a screenwriter, because I don't want to make movies. What I am is somebody who writes stuff to be seen on a stage where I can watch actors do it. And that, to me, I used to act. I acted for 35 years. I was never equity or anything, but I acted successfully for 35 years. And one day, and this happened post-pandemic, I got a call from somebody and I had said something, and then I got a call from somebody else saying, would I be in their play? I said something. And then I went to a show and I saw a play, and a director came up to me and he said, I haven't seen you on stage in a little while. I'm doing this. Would you come out? And I said, actually, I'm not acting right now. I'm really focusing in on my writing. He said, why? And I said, well, something happened. I now get such a thrill from watching other people do my words than me doing somebody else's words. And I don't know what switch was flipped, but once I discovered that, and this was right after the pandemic, where it really sunk in, I have no desire to be on stage anymore. And that I never thought would happen. I want the thrill I get from watching talented actors perform my words. There's nothing better. Like creatively speaking, there's nothing better to experience than that. And I'm sure the people listening to this podcast, if they have had the pleasure of watching talented actors perform their words interpreted by a talented director, you're pretty blessed, because there's nothing better.
So for reference, Save the Cat is a book released 2005 from Blake Snyder, the late Blake Snyder.
Yeah.
And what he did was go through and take a look at the structure and the commonalities of all of the hit movies that have been released up to that time period, and found some pretty distinct and clear. They're not tropes, but they're tropes.
Yeah. No, it's not something you want to admit. You don't go to a pitch meeting and say, well, I wrote the screenplay and it's wonderful. I did it by Save the Cat. You don't say that. You keep your industry secrets to yourselves because people won't know.
Unless it's the D&D movie where the hero literally saves a cat during the film.
Right. Exactly.
So what it is, it's an often used tool to help define structure, help define stories in film. Now, there are parts of it that can be transferred to the stage. Speaking of transferring to the stage, however, pandemic hits, you're in lockdown. What made you make the transition to playwriting? What made you write that first play?
Is so fun. This is so funny. So I was sitting at the desk I'm sitting at now in front of my computer, and I had downloaded all my books were written in Scrivener, which is a good program if you're writing a book, but it's not such a great program if you're writing plays. So I downloaded Final Draft. And I had no business downloading Final Draft because I'd never written a play. I'd never written a movie. It was like ridiculousness, but I downloaded it because I was like, I opened up the template for the Dramatists Guild modern template.
Yep.
And I said, Act 1, Scene 1, because, it allows you to write that in.
Yeah.
And I just started. No outline, no idea what I was doing. I just started writing.
Yeah.
And from that was so March was locked down. That was like a couple weeks into March. It took a year. It was a 12-month cycle. That's amazing. I never realized that. Over the course of 12 months, I had gone through several drafts, and I had about 5 Zoom readings with actors every time I had something significantly new. And the very last reading was in March of the next year, so March 2021. And it was just off the charts. The actors, I finally got the actors right. I had gone through several actors. I wanted to hear different people do it. And of course, every time you had a different actor, it really came through in a different way. So I'm going to bed that night pretty happy. And my wife, Heather, who Sometimes you just really get lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I really got lucky with my choice of spouse. She leaned over and like I said, like lights are off. Okay. Like we are going to bed. And she said, it's really good. It's really, really good. I said, thank you, baby. And she said, I don't care what you have to do. Now, at the time, I'm not working. I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Yep.
I gave up, I'm not doing my career anymore. I'm a stay-at-home dad for my special needs son, which I wouldn't change for the world. But she said, whatever you have to do to be a better writer or to be a writer, you have my full support. Do it. The very next morning, I woke up, did some research, and there's a university here in Pittsburgh called Point Park University who actually sponsors the program. And I didn't apply. I applied. I did the application. I submitted it. Then, because it's me and I do shit like this, I called the head of the department and I said, hey, listen, I just applied to the program, but can we just Zoom? I really want to learn more about it. And so that's a little forward by some people's accounts, but that's very typical me. Just get on the phone and call somebody. And we had this great conversation. And next thing I know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, I'm in the program. And that was beginning of April. And then I started in July. And I was 47 years old when I started. And I think the youngest person was 25. So, there was quite a difference. There were a lot of 30 somethings. There were a lot of 30 somethings. So I was definitely on the far end of it. But it was remarkable. And I never would have done it had Heather not said, you have my support to do it. And I did it. And 2 years later, to leave. So I made a deal with Heather. I wouldn't submit this play that I had written during COVID to anybody. I would wait until I did the work in grad school. So fast forward to there were 4 semesters plus 3 summer in program 1 week programs during the summer. And January of my last semester, I took it out. And I said to my professor, I'm ready. He goes, are you really ready or you just think you're ready? I go, what does that mean? He said, don't take it out for this class. It's called Thesis 2. Don't take it out unless you're going to change 50% of it. I said, it doesn't need 50% changing. I don't know what you're talking about. So I did all the things. I applied what he was teaching me. And this is where I really became methodical about the way I represented my structure. I did literally, this was painstaking, a 15-page Word document, beat by beat outline of the entire play. So that was that many pages. Then I learned something called Forwards Backwards. It's actually a book. Who's the name of the writer? I'm forgetting. Maybe you can look it up. But Forward Backwards, and you take what you wrote initially beat by beat, and then you go backwards with the document, and you write beat by beat from the last page to the first page. So then I got down to 8 pages. And then you go forward again, and I ended up with 5 pages. So I had a beat by beat 5-page outline of what this play should be.
Yeah, and that's Backwards and Forwards by David Ball.
Right.
1983. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did an obstacle outline. The character wants X, but the thing standing in his way or her way is why. And I did that outline. Once I had all of this down, he said, this is the killer, man. This is the killer. So I had 95 pages of what I thought was a finished play that was so good that my wife said, you got to go in, and I support you to go to grad school. I support you to do anything. When you do a rewrite in this class, at this stage, you have a printout of your manuscript in one side of your desk, and you have a blank page staring at you on your computer. And you literally rewrite your entire play word from the page to word on the keyboard till you're done. And what ended up happening was about 65 to 70% of the dialogue was changed and flew off the page. It was so much better. So I had not, the structure didn't change, the scenes didn't change, but the dialogue changed. I got rid of all the crap. It made sense. And what was a play called The Time We Have Left, after I wrote all this stuff, he finally said, I have one more. This is great. Love it. This is exactly what it should be. I think this is a great way to enter the world, but I hate the title. I said, what's wrong with the title? The Time We Have Left. He says it's too on the nose, OTN, and I hate that fucking term. I hate that term. Anyone says OTN to me, I get hives. But he said it's too OTN. I said, fine. So my wife and I sat down and we started thinking up titles. And she said, he swims the butterfly, right? It's about this former Olympic champion who has ALS, who gets ALS. And she said, well, butterfly. I said, what do you mean butterfly? And she did a quick Google search, and she discovered that if you're in a relay, you're the anchor of the relay.
Yeah, you have the anchor point.
The butterfly anchor. So the butterfly anchor is born with 65 to 70% more new dialogue, and I graduate and it goes out into the world. And a 2024 Woodward Newman finalist selection later. And God, I've sent that play out to over 100 theaters, I think.
And you just got a reorder
for
that play?
So, right.
From what store?
Right. It's at the Drama Bookshop in New York. And they've had, so we initially had we had one order of 10. It flew off the shelves. They ordered a second order of 10. Those flew off the shelves. And they just did their third order of 10. So I am very, very blessed. And that's a whole nother story. And that was an amazing journey. But, the butterfly anchor exists because I was willing to get out of my way and say, you know what? It's not done. It could be so much more. And just shut up and learn and listen to what the man is telling you. And I did. And that process, but you think about it, from the moment I started that play in March of 2020, I worked on it for a year. Then that was almost if I were real time, that's an 18-month process or longer on a play. And then we had the reading. We did a staged reading, which was with production, lights, music. People forgot there were music stands. It was exquisitely done by a director named Mary Meyer, who I adore, who's in Pittsburgh with me. And we had wonderful actors. And we sold 75 seats that night in an 85 seat theater. And the last 10 were really you couldn't sit in those last 10. I didn't sell the extras. So we were sold out. And to watch The Butterfly Anchor. So that was February 17th, 2024. 4 years. 4 years. And when you think about it, it's nuts. It's
what I love about
pants.
the story, what I love about the journey is it's the equivalent. So most people, I wasn't one of these, but most people during the pandemic discovered hobbies. Yes. Sourdough, right?
Right.
So that's the big keyword.
My best friend bakes bread every day.
But it's the equivalent of somebody discovering sourdough, realizing it's what was missing in their life, and then going to culinary school.
Right.
That's the equivalent.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
You are a plotter, right? So the way I see it, you're either a pantser or a plotter when you approach a show. I'm a pantser. I fly by the seat of my pants. I don't know what the story is. If I do, I will likely not write it because if I already know how it ends, why take the journey?
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, Bob. There's nothing wrong with being a prancer.
Oh, exactly. Right.
And I would never say there is.
So what is the same in that, and what I think people don't necessarily realize when either writing a screenplay, a novel, writing a stage play, is that the first and second drafts are what's different when you plot versus pants. For me, I write, I finish, then my rewrite is making all of the cool things that came out fit together like I planned it to. The third draft is where the process becomes the same.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how you start. The finish is usually always the same. And that is, you have to take a look at the story. You have to take a look at the beats. How does it fit in a staged environment? Are there any parts that you are so proud of that you're blind to what doesn't work?
Mm-hmm.
That is the process. And I think that's the process that was really reinforced in your grad school, was that really fine art is never finished.
Exactly.
It's abandoned at a point of completion.
Right. And eventually with The Butterfly Anchor, inside story here, like Heather always says, that it ends on a monologue, or it basically ends on a monologue. And she goes, God, that monologue, I wish it's just too long. It's just too long. I said, honey, I love you. I'm never touching this script again. It is done. It is done. Not in development. Not one more word will be touched in this play unless like somebody is really going to do it and say, can you do, whatever. But I just can't imagine. For me, I just got to the point with The Butterfly Anchor where I knew I was done. But it was 3 years of writing that thing and then waiting for the production a year later. It was every bit of 2.5 years of writing.
So what came first in that chronology? Was it The Butterfly Anchor or was it your short film?
The short film. So I wrote The Butterfly Anchor, but the short film happened my second year of grad school in the fall, and The Butterfly Anchor was picked up again for school in the spring. So I had written, filmed, edited, and submitted to film festivals A Mother's Love, the short film, all before The Butterfly Anchor became really The Butterfly Anchor, before the real work had begun. And I learned a lot with A Mother's Love. I am so glad I did it. The recognition it received was wonderful. It is about a bipolar woman dealing with crisis and a horrible narcissistic mother. The question that always is asked is how much of it is true. And I will, if anybody wants to watch it, it's 17 minutes. It would be lovely. I have a YouTube page you can find. I mean, it's out there.
Link is in the description.
Oh, beautiful. So, how much of it is true? And my answer, in all great art, there is truth. So, again, exposing myself, I was never institutionalized. The character's institutionalized. I've never tried to commit suicide. She tried to commit suicide. Those things have never happened, but enough is in there that you go, I know Darrin pretty well, and I know that. So there are moments in that play. I mean, in that short film that are hard.
Yeah.
But I thought a very necessary thing. It was a story that I wanted to tell, but I will say this, after writing a book about a bipolar character and writing a short film of a bipolar character, I'm done writing bipolar. It's like enough already. Like, I've done that. Like, I don't need to do it again. It was a wonderful journey to be able to work in a medium like film. Going back to my TV days, it was just another way of getting that out there. And I will say this, the reason I don't want to write screenplays, we were introduced right around graduation to a guy who had graduated a few years before. And he wrote a screenplay and it was done. And it was, this isn't like this was like direct to whatever. And I asked him a question because we broke out like as a group during right after, when we were like, I don't know, man. What did we just watch? I respected him for writing a screenplay and selling a screenplay, and the movie was made. I mean, that's really cool. Just wasn't my cup of tea. And I had a lot of questions about the screenplay. I had a lot of questions. And it occurred to me to ask him, just curious, was your script changed? And he said, oh, yeah. They changed about 30% of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, stop. Wait a second. You wrote a screenplay. They bought the screenplay. They changed 30% of it and didn't even tell you. And that's the moment I discovered that the least important person on a soundstage in a film is the writer. Yeah. They do not care about the writer.
But on a soundstage, writers don't go to soundstage. Right, like the least important person is the writer.
He was invited once to go see filming. And, unless you're writing and directing your own stuff, you are screwed, because it's whatever the director wants. It's whatever the producer wants. And they will change your words because there is no there is no dramatist skill to say, you can't change the words. And when I was like, why in the world would I submit a screenplay to anybody if they're just going to change it and not have any control over that? I'm going to be a playwright where they have to do it exactly the way I write it within, an actor is an actor and they do the best they can. But theaters get in trouble if they try to change even a sentence. So, those are the things that attract me. I am a writer. I am a storyteller. My word, I struggle to make every word perfect. And if the partners that I'm working with don't respect that, I can't work in it. And that's why I don't work in film. I have no desire to work in film. Zero.
Short film, I can see getting into, where you have more control. You are the everything. If you
do it yourself.
Exactly.
If you do it yourself, I was producer, writer, director. I did it all, and I had a producer, but and I but my wife was so integral in making that happen as well. And it wasn't cheap. I didn't do it on the cheap. When you watch it, it's not done on the cheap. And I just was really we talk about this online all the time, and this is a tangent, but I vehemently despise the entry fee. I don't care if it's $10, $1 or $50, $35, I think it's reprehensible to ask an
and
artist.
in film, that's all you get.
In film, well, that is all you get.
Let's not talking about the blacklist.
I spent $900. The blacklist is a whole nother story, which is
thank God this is a playwriting podcast.
Thank God this is no one's listening to me. But I will tell you that I spent $925 on film festival submission fees. And I did it and I was angry because there's no other way to do it. Now I got into, by percentage, the percentage is 3% is good, 5% is outstanding acceptance rate for film festivals. I was at 4.5%. I got into 4.5% of the submissions that I submitted to. So I was like, you know what? For almost $1,000, I really could have put it on YouTube and I would have been just as happy. What's cool is I had it on Vimeo for a long time. I just switched it to YouTube, and that's where I'm telling people to go to see it. But I've had over 600 people online who I don't know view that film. And it's an important film. And that number to me, again, is more than one, less than a billion. But at least, like our dear friend Dana Hall wrote a brilliant play called Refracted Light. And it's about a bipolar woman and how she deals. It's about a lot of things, but there is a bipolar character. And the play is being read at Eclectic Theater Company. Is that the right name? Well, it's being done in Chicago, and the cast had to watch the Mother's Love in preparation before their first rehearsal. I think that's cool. That's the reason the film was made, was so people could understand what mental illness and unsafe, trauma-driven situations can do to someone, but that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm very proud of A Mother's Love. I'm very proud of it. I didn't need to spend $950 or whatever for validation. And I wish I had known that then, but it's fine. I'm not, it's fine.
Can you see taking that and putting that as a stage piece?
Okay.
Translating
Funny
it over?
Funny you should ask. So I tried and I wrote a few pages of it and I was like, you know what? I've done it. I was just like, I have other things to say. And I tried it and I was just like, what's the reason? I didn't have a reason other than to say, oh, well, it's a stage play too. I did write a screenplay called Shiva for an Atheist, which was my thesis in school. It is a 105-page screenplay, and it is, I have been told, a beautiful screenplay. I love it. I wanted to make it after graduation, raise $300,000, which was not exactly going to happen, and make the movie. Then I realized I'm not a filmmaker and I'm really a playwright. I did turn that into a play for several reasons, hitting a little too close to home for people. It's semi-autobiographical. There are a lot of elements of truth and people's stories in that screenplay. It's in the shelf. It's not available. But I did make that into a play. So if something needs to be told in a different format for the stage, I'm totally willing to do it. A Mother's Love has its place as a film, and that's what it needs to be.
Well, it's the reason why you see a lot of filmmakers commission playwrights to convert their screenplay into stage plays.
Right.
It's hard. It requires different beats. It's just like transferring a novel to film.
Right. I mean, if you're Aaron Sorkin, I guess it's a little bit easier and you're used to writing in every medium possible. But, taking something like To Kill a Mockingbird, which was a book, then a movie that everyone knows and has seen. I don't know if somebody hasn't seen To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know if it's like the worst thing in the world, but most likely you have seen it. And then to make that adapting into a stage play, talk about like setting yourself up, but I'm not Aaron Sorkin. I'm not trying to be Aaron Sorkin. And the fact of the matter is there are opportunities to tell new and fresh stories, even our own, and know when a piece, and I think this about A Mother's Love exists exactly the way it's supposed to exist. Shiva for an Atheist could have existed as a stage play. It would have been a wonderful stage play. But the fact of the matter is you had 13 people that needed to be cast. That's not realistic for a theater. I just wrote Three Blind Mice is my current thing, my current show, and it has 3 people in it. You know why? It's producible. I mean, I came up with the idea of Three Blind Mice, which I'm extraordinarily proud of the piece. But someone said, by the way, having 3 characters isn't such a bad idea because it's a lot cheaper to hire 3 actors than 9 actors. And oh, by the way, anybody who writes or sends me a play with more than 6 or 7 characters or actors is like, can't afford it. Sorry. Anything more than that. So like on every possible level, a Shiva for an Atheist isn't doable. It's not feasible as a piece, but it's there. It could work. But I am proud of the stories that I want to tell, even the ones I don't even know what they are yet. So
the Quill and Curtain podcast. What inspired you to create this podcast?
Oh, I was sitting down and first of all, I'm not making any money. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I made money on a podcast? That was before I realized how hard it is to make money on a podcast. But, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to just talk to people and people I respect? You were, like the first 4 people, John Patrick Bray, you, Dana, John Maybe, those were my first 4. And the conversations were just so cool. They were awesome. And I was like, you know what? I think this could be cool. And 19 episodes later, the people I've talked to are fabulous and they're varied. I've talked to artistic directors. I've talked to playwrights who have had major productions. I've talked to there's a word I hate and I'm not even going to say it, but the word I hate is emerging. But I've talked to playwrights who are beginning their journey. There are so many opportunities to have conversations with people that we can learn from, because I believe more than anything in what you and Dana and Rachel, and I'm forgetting one person who created with the Playwriters Connection on Facebook, that community Vivian, yeah. That community that you've created for everybody. I wanted to continue that conversation into a different medium because the Playwright Connection has such a meaning to me. I thought Quill and Curtain could have meaning to others just by listening to people and getting inspired by people. And I thought that was something that we could do. And we've done it. We're finishing the season on this episode. It'll give me time to reflect. 19 episodes in the can. The anecdotal, I get messages from people telling me how much they love it. The numbers prove that people are listening. And I'm going to come back with another season that's going to be really, I kind of flew by the seat of my pants with the first one, but I'm going to be really deliberate with the second one, curating the season, because I believe more than anything, we need to hear from each other. We need to inspire each other. Please, God Almighty, may we all be vulnerable with each other. Why did I just tell the story about the butterfly anchor? Do I set out to be vulnerable? No. Do I set out to be authentic? Yes. Everything in my life is about being authentic, period. And if someone can learn from my story and say, you know what, look at everything that Darrin has done with that play that one person in Pittsburgh who does community theater didn't like, one person, and everybody else loves it. I could have gone into a hole, but I didn't. And we wouldn't know these stories unless we share these stories. And you know what? It's time we share the stories. And having a platform to do that is important. And, I think the Playwright Connection, I think it's wonderful that we talk to each other about our successes, but I think it's about our failures that we have to share, because we learn from our failures, or our perceived failures, not even failures, but the things that we're going through that are hard. When we can share what we're going through that are hard with good people, it makes us better. So that was the premise of the podcast. I just wanted to share stories and talk to people.
And speaking of taking a negative and turning it into a positive, every podcast that you've done ends with a question.
Yeah.
Now, when you asked me this question, I actually had trouble answering it, because so the question is, what is the story of your favorite rejection story? I don't see rejection the way other playwrights do. If it wasn't mine to begin with, it's not a rejection.
You're like the most positive person I've ever met.
Well, 30 years of failure will do that to a person. But so for me, I tried to poorly tell the story of when a client reached out to me for a quote and then tried to scam me to save money by quoting my own quote back.
Yeah. And I love that story.
I didn't have the details accurate, but I do have an actual rejection story that was happening the week we spoke.
Oh, great.
I'm going to share that to give you time to think of one.
Oh, I got mine, but go ahead. I want to hear it.
I had a theater in California reach out to me about my show Trouble in Deadwood. It is an interactive comedy mystery, right? Somebody dies. You, the audience, have to figure out who did it. And their response was, we love the show. We think it's funny. We think it's great. We have one problem. We don't like the fact that one of the women in the show is pregnant out of wedlock. And I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You're fine with the murder, but you're not okay with an unsubstantiated claim of out of wedlock pregnancy. And they're like, yeah. So they didn't do the show. So my question to you is, what is your favorite rejection story?
I am not going to name the theater.
It's probably for the best career-wise.
or its region. And I don't think the person who told me this listens to the podcast, so I think we're safe. I'm very proud of Three Blind Mice. Three Blind Mice is a story of an African-American, Latino, and Jewish men who are around the age of 50, who get together for the first time since high school at a funeral of a mutual friend from high school who commits suicide. And the play takes course over about a year to 18 months. And they talk about their struggles of being a 50-something-year-old man in today's world where the rules that had always applied don't seem to apply anymore. And their roles and the things that happen to them that they don't understand, because once things were okay to do and say, and now all of a sudden they're not okay, and who's the enemy and who's not. And, it's actually a very inspiring story, but you discover that, these men are not perfect.
Yeah.
And they do and say and have experiences that aren't so great, but they learn from it. Each and every one of them learn from it. But I was very specific. I wanted a Latino, an African American, and a Jew. And I spent 4 hours interviewing an African American judge who I was introduced to about his life. He's now about 10 years older than I am, but I wanted to know everything. I wanted this to be as authentically I wanted this to be so authentic. I spent about 4 or 5 hours interviewing a Latino man about a little older than me. We're the same age. So he was probably about 58, 60, so about 10 years older. And I'm really proud of the piece. So I started sending it around. And you recommended that I send it to this particular place because you thought it was a great fit. And I was like, Bob, you're amazing. I love you. Thank you so much. So I wrote an email to the guy. And in the subject line, it says, Bob LeBlanc recommends I contact you. So there was no doubt that I was not only shamelessly using your name, but
dropping.
Right. But he should pay attention to me. He should absolutely not put this in the trash. So I said, please accept this play, The Three Blind Mice. It's something that Bob's a fan of, and he thinks it would be great for your theater. A few days later, I get an email back from him. Said, Dear Darrin, yes, I know Bob very well. I trust his taste. I think that Bob is right. I think you have a really good play here. It's just there's something I can't get past. And the fact is, I don't have any brown or black people in my area to cast. So I can't do the show because we can't cast it.
That is really surprising.
And I hung up. I thanked him and I said, thanks. And I went upstairs. I told my wife, I just got rejected. A theater liked my play, good size, three member cast, cheap to do, minimal sets, but he can't do it because he can't find an African American or a Latino in his entire region to do the show. And if that's what's going to, it blew my mind.
It kind of blows my mind too, to be honest with you. It
blew my mind because I was just like, what do I have to do? So if I wrote a play about 3 white guys, you do it. It's like, no one else will do it. But, it's just like, it's remarkable to me the reasons that people discover why not to do something. So I thought it was great because it's just another person. And look, he said, what else have you got? He said, we do funny here. So what else have you got? Because Three Blind Mice is not funny. He said, other than the fact that it's a casting issue, I want something funny. What have you got? So I pitched him a couple of things. I never heard back from him, but it was just one of those things that it's just one more person. He goes on my email list and I send things out and, maybe he'll discover something that'll work. But the fact of the matter is these things work out. And Three Blind Mice is going to be a part of a reading series of a professional Pittsburgh theater on July 9th. And it's not, I don't think Three Blind Mice is done. I think it's like 99% done. I think they're, like a couple things, but I am perfectly happy sending it out to places and letting them see if they like it or not. But the fact of the matter is that rejection story, it's like, what do you got to do to get ahead? I mean, it's just like
that surprised me too when you said
story.
it. When you told me that when it first happened, that was surprising to me. Yeah.
Maybe you just wanted an excuse, but whatever.
Possibly. Now, remember though, Look at the journey in, what was it, The Time We Have Left became The Butterfly Anchor?
Yeah.
99% done. Could still
Doesn't mean
mean
done.
80% of the show changed.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You're right.
And I think that's one of the, to me, that's one of the joys of playwriting is the generation is fun. The crafting of the final is where the work lies.
Never stops. It never stops.
And it's not easy work.
Right.
And we get that a lot in our profession. We have a lot of Rachel Fina Williams is famous for saying, people always telling her, are you still writing your little play? Still doing your little work? Or, oh, that seems easy. I could do that.
Those people suck. Those people suck.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth of the matter is it looks easy only because they're seeing the final work. It looks easy because they don't see the hard part.
Oh, but okay. So when did we do it? October?
Yeah.
We did a reading of Three Blind Mice on the first or the second after. So it was the vomit draft, then the first draft, and then a draft and a half. I did a private reading for you, for Dana, and for a few other playwrights. The actors were fine. It was fine. And I got so many notes. I rewrote it 50% different, did my method. And I had another private reading about a few weeks ago. I don't even remember when, whatever. It was a few weeks ago. You were on the call and Jackie Floyd was on the call. Oh, no. That was a different play. I don't know. We had people on the call, but you were there. And, basically people said, you got it. Look how far it's come, but you really got something. This is real. So yeah, do I have a couple things to change in it? Sure. It's not perfect yet, but I am so proud of the work. And if someone says to me, you've been working on that play for a really long time, I'm like, dude, you have no idea what's on my computer, man. Because I've got I've got a 10-page short play. I've never written a one act. I have a 43-page one act. They're all up on NPX. But, I've got things on there that I'm proud of because I'm trying to establish a portfolio of work. Because one day someone's going to say, what else have you got? And I'm going to have God damn it, I'm going to have an answer. That's it. That's my, what else have you got? I've got it.
One of the biggest advices that I give playwrights, new playwrights in particular, who might have 2 or 3 shows under their belt, it's a good start of a catalog. Yeah. But instead of focusing on the no's you get, focus on the work. Just keep on writing, because it's the size of that catalog that's going to lead to production.
That's right.
Because people are going to say exactly what you ran into. What else do you have? You want comedies? Here's my comedies.
And what people are saying, and what that artistic director said after she experienced the Butterfly Anchor in person, was the first 5 minutes was, I really love Butterfly Anchor. It was so extraordinarily powerful. What a great and went on and on and on about it. And it was like, no, I'm not going to do it. But it was great.
Yeah. And artistic directors are going to understand the limitations of their theater and their ensemble.
But when she said she would not have said, what else have you got? Unless she thought I was a pretty good writer.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to. If you didn't think I was a good writer and you didn't want to read more, an artistic director is going to say, what else have you got? They don't have the time to read more.
Yeah.
Unless they really want to read more.
And with that, Darrin, thank you for having yourself on your own show.
Bob, thank you for being such a good friend.
It's my pleasure.
You know what a good friend you are. We say it privately, but thank you for everything you do for me.
Thank you.
And for everyone else.
I don't take praise well, so I'm going to change the subject.
I know you don't.
Say that this podcast was brought to you by Point Park University in Pittsburgh. specifically the Writing for Stage and Screen Master's Program. You can find more information at pointpark.edu. The link itself is in the podcast below. I have been Robert J. LeBlanc, your guest host for this special episode. Darrin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.